In today's episode of Unapologetically Woman, we have Allie, who is the producer and director for Work Our Way Productions. And today she is going to talk to us about her experience with her period loss due to highly athletic training and how she got back in tune with her femininity and took charge. Stay tuned for a very empowering episode.
That going, we got that started.
Unapologetically
I'm going to start with your...
Welcome to Unapologetically Woman, the podcast where women come together to share their unfiltered experiences navigating womanhood. Join us as we dive into candid conversations about periods, perimenopause, postpartum bleeding, miscarriages, and more. This is a safe space where we embrace the raw, real, and often unspoken aspects of being a woman. Get ready to be empowered, inspired, and heard. This is Unapologetically Woman. Allie is a seasoned travel writer, photographer, and filmmaker with an eye on sustainable tourism and adventure travel beats. She has been to over 100 countries, done van life in Australia, sailed around the world, and lived abroad for 5 years. Her work is routinely published in Thrillist, Fox News, Tastemade Travel, Semester at Sea, Booking.com, and more. In addition to travel content, she has 10 years of journalism and public relations experience, in addition to 7 years of active duty Air Force service with public affairs, combat camera, and international relations leadership experience. Let's welcome Miss Allie to the show. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you?
I'm so good. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for joining me. I was like checking out your website and I'm like, oh man, she is that every woman. Like, I love it.
Yeah, it's very all over the place. I now work in film as a producer. And so whenever people ask me what I do, I don't know really what to say because there's so much of my life that is like seemingly very random. But yeah, no, I'm very happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me on.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. And I actually I want to piggyback off of that because we're multifaceted beings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like sometimes society tries to put us in a box. And part of our journey is understanding that we're not in a box, but how to just mesh all those different parts of us together, like to make us happy. And I feel like your bio is like an example, like a testimony of that, of like living your life unapologetically, like doing what you love to do, like, and it doesn't have to make sense because it's all you, it's all Allie, you know, and I love that.
Yeah, it's literally the opposite of like a housewife bio. You know what I mean? It's like every stereotype, like most of, I got my start in like sports and investigative journalism, news, military. Those are all very like dude dominated fields. And, obviously I'm pregnant now in my mid-30s. The reason I wanted to wait is because I wanted to travel the world. Like I didn't want to just like do the normal thing that I think a lot of women feel like they have to do, like especially certain women that maybe are born and raised with certain religious values or born and raised in the South. Like there's this pressure to do things a certain way and live your life in a certain order. And I just said, fuck it to all of that and just did my own thing. So yeah, no, it's a good time.
I can relate. It's true. I'm from the South, y'all. Okay. I got a lot of people that don't like me because I was that girl. I'm like, no, I was the one who was like, I don't want children. I was the one who was like, I want to explore. I left Florida with one suitcase and haven't returned back. It was like one of those things. So yes, it is true. Like the cultural aspect of it is very true. It's just a part of what we have to overcome.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, not to just like dive into another topic, but one of the last documentaries that I directed and produced was about women in the South after the fall of Roe v. Wade and like some of the things that they had to go through. And it's like near and dear to my heart, like just the struggles that women now in 2023 have to deal with. It's absolutely insane. As someone who's currently pregnant, I can't even imagine that right being stripped from me with something as complicated and turbulent as a pregnancy. Like so many things can go wrong that people don't even realize. And what's sad is that women, particularly in the South, don't have that right anymore. So yeah, I mean, it's just like the fight continues truly. And I think it starts with stories like yours and podcasts like yours who can show women like, hey, this doesn't have to be your life. You know what I mean? Like if it sucks, like please get out of that, get out of that area, that mindset. Like, you know, there's just I think a lot of value in telling the stories that you tell. So thank you very much for podcasts like yours.
Thank you so much for being here. That was actually a nice segue there into talking about women's health, because we want to start with you. Now, Allie has an amazing story here because she talks about the process in which her period stopped due to athletic training. And a lot of athletes can probably relate to this, but we want to start from the beginning. We want to know the Allie before she got very athletic, when her period first came on. What was going on? How old were you? What were your thoughts? What were the people thought around you? You know, did that influence you? And just how did you feel about that experience?
Yeah, well, I was born and raised in the Midwest, in like a strict Catholic family, and I was raised primarily by a single mom. And sadly, she never really taught me about any of that stuff. Everything that I learned about like my body and menstrual cycles and my period, I learned from class. I had to learn from school. And as you know, like, you know, you can get your period at any point after a certain age. It's not like, oh, once you hit, you know, eighth grade, like we're going to teach this class, but that's how they approached it at school. So I don't even remember if I had any sort of knowledge or that like sex ed class before I got it. I got it when I was 13. I knew of it. Like I knew that it was like a thing that happens to women. But I didn't really have the support initially from like family to deal with it. So like, you know, figuring out how to like insert a tampon was like a hour long experience of me in the bathroom, like trying to read like the directions over and over and like figure it out. So it was kind of a lonely experience, I will say. In terms of when I got it, I think I got it at school, like as of course you would, right? Like it's always in like the most embarrassing place possible. But I don't think, you know, I wasn't like, it wasn't anything dramatic. Like it wasn't like I was wearing like white pants at the time and had to like do my whole day like that. I just got it and then I was like, all right, this is it. Like, welcome to the rest of my life. This sucks already, and I can't believe I have to do this once a month forever. So that was kind of what went through my mind.
And that's interesting because, you know, one of the things that you were saying is that like it was kind of like hush hush, you know, like your family didn't really want to talk about it, kind of thing.
No, it's so
yeah, and it's like, why are we hush hush about it? Like this is a part of our health. Like this is something that we have to understand as women. Like because we have this organ, like we have to understand it. It's a part of our lives. And you know, you said something like you're like, oh, this sucks. And you know, it's unfortunate that we get that feeling very early on with our bodies. I want to kind of know, like, you know, how did you maneuver that? You know, like, did you start to figure things out, or was it like I was popping pills every time? Like, how did your journey start to progress with that?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't pop any pills. I like tried to because I just didn't have the information or the access, I would say. Like I didn't feel comfortable like putting it on display or like, you know, asking for help. So I did kind of deal with it internally mostly. And you know, for me, you know, birth control really wasn't something that I explored until I was in college because, you know, when you're under 18, you have to get parent consent. And because I grew up in a religious household, it was like very not okay to be doing that. So it sucked. I had to like fly under the radar for a huge part of my formative years instead of just living in like comfort and confidence in what was happening to my body. So yeah, I would say for me, when I started birth control finally is also when I started becoming a lot more physically active and I became an endurance athlete where I was doing marathons and Ironman competitions and these things that take like an enormous toll on your body. And, right around the time that I was doing birth control was also when I lost my period for a few years, which was an interesting shift. So, but no, I didn't immediately go to like popping pills. I mean, just because the access wasn't there. And sadly, this was not to show my age, but back in like the early 2000s, and you're seeing that a lot of women still struggle with that access today. So that's part of really what I try to do in my day job, is bring as much awareness to light as possible on this issue.
Oh my gosh. And Allie, you're such an asset. We are going to take a quick break, and then we are going to come back and understand Allie's story of when her period went absent. So stay tuned. Welcome to Unapologetically Woman, the podcast where we dive into all things related to women's health, empowerment, and success. I'm Ms Tonya, a dedicated life coach using menstrual cycle synergy to help women executives, women entrepreneurs, and corporations, helping them establish better policies to accommodate women. If you are enjoying today's episode and want to stay updated with our latest content, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell so you never miss a new video. Share this video with a woman who would benefit from our discussions. We're always looking to grow our community and empower more women. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below sharing the insights you gained from today's episode. And don't forget to like this video to show your support. If you are watching during the premiere, make sure you leave a comment during the premiere below in order to enter into our monthly giveaway, where you'll receive live CBD resin gummy, CBD skincare products, a period tracker planner, and a spa certificate. Winners will be tagged and announced. New episodes premiere on YouTube on Wednesdays and Thursdays at 6 p.m. If you're ready to take the next step towards your own empowerment, book a free 15 life coaching session with me. Visit www.mstonya.com to schedule your session today. For corporations looking to support women's health, I offer consulting services to help implement better policies. Want to be a guest on our show and share your story? Visit our website or find the link in the description to express your interests. Thank you for being part of our community. Subscribe now, click the notification bell, leave a comment, like, share, and join us on this empowering journey. Stay tuned for more empowering conversations on Unapologetically Woman. All right, we are back with Miss Allie, Miss Extraordinaire, Miss I Am Every Woman. You will not tie me down. We are going to get into the part of her story where she talks about when her period went absent into her life. So Allie, you said, you started your endurance training, period went absent, but before that, you're going through, learning more about your body, and getting on a schedule. Were you able to actually obtain a routine schedule with your period, understand your cravings when you just needed to stop working, or did you kind of plow through things?
Yeah, certainly. So, I'll kind of backtrack just slightly. Obviously I got my period when I was 13. I had to kind of live a little bit in silence until I was 18 and out of the house. And from 18 to 22, so basically when I was at university, I didn't have health insurance at all. I came from a low income family, and I was working. They called me the single mom in training, because I was working 3 jobs, and going to school and doing ROTC for the military. So I was just, very spread thin, and I just didn't have the funds to pay for health insurance. So the first time I got it was actually in 2012 when I joined the military full time. And, I joined as a combat camera officer and public affairs officer. So it was a very rigorous job that required a lot of physical training. I needed to be able to run 1.5 miles in under 9 minutes. I needed to be able to do 50 push-ups in a minute, 60 sit-ups in a minute. I just had to be on it. And since I was an officer, there was an expectation that I had to, out of my whole flight, get the best scores. So I almost had to do even better than that, just to kind of be respected in a very male-dominated career field. Most of the people who I taught how to document combat were all men who were generally older than me. So it was a
Oh,
very shocking like first job out of college, I would say. But it's one that I definitely wanted to knock out of the park. Like I wasn't really intimidated at all. I wanted to do that kind of work. So I put the work in and I put the time in, and I went from running 0 hours a week to running like, 40 at least on like a slow week. So when you do that to your body, it puts it under a tremendous amount of stress, and you have to be able to compensate with diet and with proper stretching and strength training. And because I had never done anything like this before, I didn't really know, like there weren't like bloggers or influencers back then to tell you like how to do it successfully and safely. You just, kind of always, you had to throw yourself into the fire a little bit. So that, in addition to going on birth control, because I finally had medical insurance for like the first time in my life, I think those two things combined made my period go away. And at first, it was like a little, like it was nice. Like you were, I was like, oh, like I very much appreciate this break. Like, and the doctor said, like, hey, if you go on, like I had implant on, which now is Nexplanon, the arm implant for birth control. And at the time they said, hey, there's a risk that your period might go away for like 1 or 2 cycles. So I kind of knew that it was like, something that could happen to me. But after like 6 months and after a year of not getting a period, I was like, oh my God, am I okay? And it just made life, a little nerve-wracking. Like I was still in my 20s and, still like sexually active. And I had no idea, like really what was going on. And like I had no safety net in terms of getting it each month and knowing that I was okay. And so I was like, kind of added to just like my anxiety and mental stress. But yeah, I think for me, I was really nervous. I was Googling a lot of stuff back then, and the first thing that pops up is infertility. And I was in my young 20s, so I didn't want a family. I wanted to like live my life and be like a career woman and travel the world, and it wasn't like on my radar. But when that happens to you at a young age, you can't help but wonder if it's going to get worse as you get older. And is it gone forever? Is it never going to come back? Like, am I just infertile? Like, how's that going to affect my future husband and family life? So it was a lot for sure. And, after I would say maybe 2 or 3 years, it finally did come back. But it's a long time to kind of go without a thing that is regular in your life, and like even though it sucks, it is still like a part of your routine, and you do still gravitate toward that routine in some way, maybe subconsciously. So not having that, it did feel a bit lost and ungrounded for some time.
oh, wow. You know what's interesting is that like you get it and you're like, all right, this sucks, but I'm gonna deal with it. And then all of a sudden you don't get it. And it's like it's nerve wracking. Like, and I feel like, maybe it's like you don't really understand what's happening and you're like, oh, am I gonna get a surprise? Or am I pregnant? And we don't want to be pregnant. So it's like, dude, what's gonna happen? And that uncertainty throws you off.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It makes it very difficult to kind of live your life with the confidence that you initially had when you did have your period. So it definitely does affect you psychologically, even though it is like kind of nice to not have it all the time. You do suffer in other ways. And I think for me, that's definitely what happened. I would say, so I got it back probably in like 2015. And in 2017, I did my first Ironman competition, which is like, I think like the largest endurance race that you could possibly do. And, it's like a 2.4 mile swim, like 112-mile bike, and then a marathon all back to back in the same day. And you have to train for like a whole year. I didn't actually know how to swim or ride a bike when I signed up. So I had to learn like all of the techniques with those two sports in addition to running. And what made me laugh is like the day of, when you're like the most nervous and you're up at like 2 a.m. and going to your corrals and getting ready. I went into a porta potty and I got my period. And I had obviously already had it for like 2 years prior to that, but it was just like a funny little like FU moment where like it just like when I was the most stressed and for like the hardest competition I've ever done in my life, I like got it. But what was funny is I placed fifth in my age group that day. So, oddly enough, maybe it was a good thing. Like maybe it did something to my body that kind of made it stronger or made it more reactive on adrenaline than it normally is. So I don't know. It was just a funny thing that kind of happened that day that made me think about like my journey and where I had been, like, 5 years prior to that.
That is amazing. And I really do feel it's exactly like your body, like, fuck you. Okay. Like, we're going to get regulated here. We are going to get balanced. And I was like, we're going to do this, baby. I got you, babe. Like, it just kicked in to keep going. Because for me, like, I feel like during my ovulation phase, I crave a lot of sweets. I'm very cravey on sweets and like certain types of sweets, but my energy level is different as well. Like it's almost as if it's coming to like a peak because it's about to come down, like before the period comes on. So it's like the less sleep I have during that time, actually better for me. If I sleep later, I'm more groggy. Isn't that interesting? And it's like when you start tracking your period and understanding, dude, I'm going to be in this mood around this time. I'm not scheduling any meetings. Don't talk to me unapologetically. Like, I want to keep you as a friend. That's why we're not speaking right now during this time. Like, it's like that. So now I'm curious, Ms. Allie, when your period did come on, that really is a big milestone in your life for your period to come. That's so symbolic and beautiful to me. Did you learn how to stay athletic with your period being regular?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, so it came back in I think 2015 and yeah, I mean, I was in that phase, like I was doing marathons and I didn't start training for the Ironman until 2016, but I was definitely regular once I did start training and um it was nice to just have it around because it indicated that my diet was good, that I was getting like the vitamins and the supplements that I needed, that I was taking the rest days that I was supposed to be taking. And it like kind of just confirmed that I was doing everything right with training because training for an Ironman is like no joke. Like just for like context, I was working full time the entire time that I was training. And my schedule was I would wake up at 4 in the morning. I would go to the gym for 2 hours in the morning. I'd go to work at 7. I would take a lunch break where I would swim for an hour. And then when I got off work at 5, I would have 4 to 5 hours to do like a long run or like, a combo like strength and swim or strength and bike. And I would finish at, 9 or 10 p.m. I would go to sleep and then I would wake back up at 4. And I did that for like 10 months. Like it was like very intense because I knew that I wanted to qualify for Kona and I wanted to like get a good time, which I did. But I had to put in just an insane amount of work. And when you put that amount of stress on your body, if you forget one thing like eating breakfast, it can throw off your whole game. And so I relied on the consistency of like having my period to confirm that I was doing all the right things and that I wasn't shortchanging any aspect of my training or cutting anything short, cutting corners. So I really appreciated having it during training, even though it was the hardest year of my life physically, and I haven't really done anything like it since. It was nice to just have that regularity.
That's beautiful because I feel like you were able to change your view around about your period and accept it for what it is. It's like, this is an indication that I am healthy, that things are going well, and understanding like this is normal, like, and this is okay, like, because as a woman, this is my indicator, like, this is my cleansing process. And I think that's absolutely beautiful. Like, like to understand and come to terms with that. And then it's now you flip the switch, your mindset is different. And so you're able to view your body differently and love yourself differently, like because of that. And I think that's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, definitely. If I compare it to when I lost my period, like that was when I first started endurance training and I didn't know what I was doing and I wasn't eating more calories, to compensate for the loss of calories. I wasn't stretching ever. Like my husband now, but my boyfriend at the time, 10 years ago, like we lived in Italy and we did this half marathon together. And I remember we did it like after partying like all night the night before. We just like rolled right into a half marathon, which is like very unsafe. It's like not good for your body. And, we were young and we knew that we could do it. But the reality is, I just didn't really understand how to train for anything endurance. Like, I just would do it and then like I wouldn't stretch, I wouldn't drink more water, like even stuff like that. Like I took for granted and my body reacted to that. And the first thing it did was it said, okay, this thing that is taking a lot of energy, your period, we're stopping it until you can get your shit together and learn how to like take care of your body. Like, so it makes sense looking back why I lost it for the amount of time that I did. And it was because in a sense I was unhealthy. I was doing things in an unhealthy way and I wasn't taking care of my body or my diet at all. So yeah, now like obviously all's good and we have a nice symbiotic relationship now, but it wasn't always like that. And it can be scary to lose it for that amount of time.
I'm really glad you said that because, I feel like people will think, oh, Ironman, and like the endurance training, and you automatically think I'm healthy, I'm doing what's right, but as a woman, there are other things that we do have to consider when it comes to those types of training that you don't know until you experience it. So that's very interesting, because it's like, oh, as women, we still have to maintain this aspect of our lives, even our training. It really has to be a little different from a man's. Like, we have to consider other things than what a man would consider for his training. And you learned that. You came to learn that like naturally. And I think that's wonderful because now, like you said, you have this beautiful relationship with your body, and now you're about to bring in a beautiful soul into this world. Right before this, you guys found out Miss Allie's pregnant. So congratulations on that. And the excitement of that. She is ready. Do you want to give some thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean it is just like it's a really good feeling, especially like 10 years ago at this point. 2013 is when I was kind of in the thick of like not having a period and like thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm probably not fertile. Like there's something wrong with me. I can't have kids. And even though I was in my 20s and I was okay with it at the time, it still bugged me. It still just made me sad about my future self, like my Allie in my 30s or 40s. And yeah, I mean, I'm just like so stoked. It's our first. We're gonna name him Lafayette, Wyatt for short. And like I'm just excited to have just like a boy that I can just like throw at the wall and like go on crazy adventures with. Like I really am just excited. So yeah, I would say now, especially, I'm learning a lot more about my body. I'm trying to the approach that I take, not only with life, but just with like every endurance race I've ever done or whatever, is I try not to do like too much research ahead of time because I feel like I'll talk myself out of it if I know too much. Like if I knew like how hard an Ironman was before I did it, I wouldn't have done it. It's just straight up, I wouldn't have done it. Same with like the military, same with like everything I've ever done in my life ever. So I only like educate myself a little bit, and I'm doing the same thing with pregnancy. Like I feel like every time I go to a public place, every woman is like, oh, you're pregnant, let me tell you my worst pregnancy story, and then they just like unsolicited advice hit me with like a very graphic story of them in labor for 30 hours and like tarried and like all this stuff where I'm like, I'm just trying to shop at Whole Foods. Like I don't even know who you are. So I'm having to navigate that a little bit. But I'm trying not to give myself more anxiety. I'm also big on meditation and just like facilitating like Zen and like consciousness and like all of that stuff I think is important. And I think the baby can like feel all of that. So the more anxious I am, I think indirectly also affects like the unborn babies. So I'm just trying to be chill and not like do too much research. Like Reddit and Instagram and social media, like there's a lot of anxiety there that I just don't need to be a part of. So, but it has been a learning experience, just being more in tune with your body and kind of seeing the changes unfold in real time. And like I'm 6 months, so I'm at the point where I can like feel him kick like every night, and he's so aggressive and like beats the shit out of me every moment of every day. But it's like very cool. It's like cool to like hear the heartbeat when you go to the doctor, or like feel the kicks in the middle of the night. It's bananas. And like that starts obviously with a period. And so it's, the circle of life is definitely real. And I'm very thankful, like a decade after losing my period, to have this experience at all. Because I know that not all women can have that. So I'm just trying to be grateful every day.
That is absolutely beautiful. You are truly an inspiration, like not only to athletes, but just to women everywhere. Like you did the career, you did your traveling, and now you did it on your terms too. And I think that's what is so beautiful. You're like, no, this is what I want to do, and I do it. And you know yourself enough to know, hey, if I do this, I'm not going to do that. Because you're like, I'm going to overthink, and then I'm just not going to do it at all. And I'm going to, like you said, you're going to talk yourself out of it. You're going to doubt yourself. But you're like, you know what? I'm going to stay in the present, in the now. And that's really how things get done and get accomplished. Sometimes we focus so much on the future and what we've done in the past, instead of focusing on the now, this moment, to get us to this next moment. Like we're so focused over here, and your life is truly a beautiful journey.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I definitely, just talking about being present, I always recommend that people learn how to meditate. It's been such a healing thing for me that I really started doing since the pandemic. And one of the things that you learn is like equanimity, which is like your ability to identify that your thoughts are straying and to like come back to the present. And what's interesting is when you meditate, you find that your thoughts go one of two directions. They either go into the future, which is a sign of like anxiety, or they go into the past, which like indicates like regret or like past trauma. And the more you're able to identify like where your brain is going, you can kind of combat that a little bit in the present and say like, oh, okay, my headspace is very much like I'm thinking about this like shoot I have next week. It's stressing me out. Like, how do I bring myself to just be more present and accept like that whatever happens is going to happen. And, it's just like a really interesting tool to have in your back pocket when you're struggling with like these very everyday normal things that I think a lot of women go through. So I'm a huge fan of that. And I love to hear you say live in the present, because I think that's a huge part of why I am where I am today is not letting the anxieties of my past or future like cripple my decisions of now.
Absolutely beautifully and well said. We are going to end it right there. You guys must check out Miss Allie. Make sure you check out her website. Make sure you get her on your project and support her along her journey. We will see you next week for Unapologetically Women.
Thanks for joining us today. Learn more about our guests in the description below. Download your free period tracker to stay in tune with your energy levels, mood, cravings, and your flow. Interested in being a guest on our show? Complete the form in the description. Leave a comment below to share your thoughts on today's episode and be entered into our surprise monthly giveaway. For women looking for a natural way to relieve menstrual cramps, try live resin gummies to ease menstrual cramps. The link is available in the description. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more empowering content. This is Unapologetically Woman.